Argentina just elected a new president, Javier Milei. The former economist has some radical ideas to resurrect the failing economy, like cut government spending in half, convert the country's currency to the US dollar, and abolish the central bank. Many people thought he was just going to come in and steamroll his ideas into existence, but there were some that haven't waved the white flag yet, specifically Argentina's central bank. So in this video, let's talk about what the central bank is doing to try and alter Milei's plans and how this could have an impact on Argentina's economy going forward. But before we dive into that, we need to talk about what's been happening to get us to this point. Javier Milei officially took office on Sunday, December 10th, and within the next couple days made a decision to slash the value of the Argentine peso in half against the dollar. This had always been his first objective. In order for his plan of transitioning to the dollar to work, he needs to make the local currency less valuable, less reliable, and create less of a demand for it. Well, mission accomplished. Overnight, the value of the peso went down from about 360 pesos for every $1 to 800 pesos for every $1. So for the average citizen, this basically means that you needed more than twice the amount of pesos to buy the same amount of groceries as the day before. Milei knew that this was going to be the outcome, as he warned everyone in his inauguration speech that things will get much worse before they get a little better. The whole idea of moving to the dollar is to stabilize the economy, an economy that has seen inflation rise over 160%, poverty hovering around 40%, and a 40-something billion dollar loan owed back to the International Monetary Fund that they may never be able to pay off. This transition to the dollar is something that has been done successfully in the past by two other Latin American countries, El Salvador and Ecuador. But a challenge those countries faced was after the dollar stabilized each of those economies, they were stuck in this vicious cycle of a monetary policy that was not their own. Once you move to the dollar, you are bound by the rules and regulations set forth by the United States Central Bank, the Federal Reserve. Other countries obviously can't print the dollar, so you also need to be mindful of having enough dollars in circulation. Both of these issues are going to be problematic for Argentina too, and this is where their central bank comes back into the story. If Argentina moves to the dollar and therefore would be bound by the United States Central Bank policies, there would honestly be no need for Argentina's central bank, because their monetary policies could only be for a currency that is no longer relevant, the peso. To counteract this, the Argentine Central Bank plans on restricting dollar access until Milei fully reveals his economic policy. The central bank also performs some technical aspects that we can talk about here and break down what it all means. The central bank changed its benchmark tool for monetary policy by replacing the 4-week note for a one-day transaction. These notes are debt that the country issues where an investor would pay up front and receive interest over the loan at the end of the term. And the government, in turn, would take that upfront money from the investor and use it to fund certain things within the government or however they saw fit. There are 4 reasons why a central bank would make this change from a 4-week note to a one-day transaction, and the first is to have greater flexibility. Shorter-term transactions allow the central bank to respond more quickly to changes in economic conditions. So it sounds like the central bank is really trying to brace for a wild upcoming economic period for Argentina. The second reason is interest rate management. So by conducting these transactions on a daily basis, the central bank can more precisely control short-term interest rates, influencing borrowing costs and liquidity in the financial system. What they are trying to avoid is an investor buying Argentina's debt today and seeing a drastic change in the value of that debt tomorrow. The third reason is it helps with stronger liquidity management. Shorter-term transactions provide better control over liquidity in financial markets. This can be particularly important during periods of economic volatility and financial stress when rapid adjustments are probably needed. And then there's the fourth reason, which is probably the most important, which is risk management and overall communication throughout the entire financial system. Since more transactions will be happening on a daily basis, more communication will be needed with the financial system so everyone is on the same page, and everyone involved will need to recalibrate the risk management as these shorter term transactions introduce a whole different set of problems. Everyone is bracing for what seems like could be a shocking economic downturn in Argentina. What's also shocking is you haven't hit the subscribe button yet. I make videos about world news impacting the dollar, so if you like topics like this and want to see more of them, you know what to do. Besides all the internal challenges, Argentina still has this 40-something billion dollar loan that they have to pay off to the IMF, which is quite frankly difficult to do when your economy is struggling, the reason you had to get the loan in the first place. The country has a currency reserve issue and had to make payments back to the IMF in other currencies like the Chinese yuan. But recently, under Milei's administration, they announced a framework to help pay down this loan and make its next payment. But their awesome idea was to take out another loan to pay off their current loan. The Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean has approved a $960 million loan for Argentina in order to help them meet the requirements to the IMF. Personal Finance 101 typically says not to take out a loan to pay off another loan, but at the time of this recording, the terms of the deal with the Development Bank weren't really clear. So if it turns out that the interest rate on this loan are lower than the IMF, then it's probably a good deal. Think about it as a refinance. But Milei and his team called this their first big achievement and went on to say getting Argentina's finances in order allowed the country to access CAF financing and avoid default with the IMF. So will Argentina and their central bank be able to survive this challenging time? Quite honestly, this is the least of their concerns. I put together a playlist documenting Argentina's journey to dollarizing their economy, and it talks about things like why Javier Milei chose the dollar over BRICS, how the strategies that El Salvador and Ecuador used to dollarize their own economy could work for Argentina, and all the details behind devaluing the Argentine peso. All of these stories are very intertwined, so if any of that interests you, make sure to check out this playlist here.